There's a strange paradox about overthinking. The more you try to solve your life inside your head, the more your life seems to slip out of your hands. You tell yourself you're being careful, thoughtful, responsible, but somehow, hours pass, decisions remain untouched, and your mind feels heavier than before. And the strange thing is, the more you think, the less clear everything starts to feel. If this feels familiar, you're not alone. Overthinking doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like replaying a conversation long after it ended, wondering if you said the wrong thing, imagining how things could go wrong before they even begin, or feeling mentally exhausted without having actually done anything. Like your mind has been busy all day, but your life hasn't moved at all. And the hardest part is this: your mind convinces you that all this thinking is helping, that you're getting closer to clarity, closer to certainty, but often it's doing the opposite. It keeps you searching without ever letting you arrive. So instead of giving you a list of things to fix yourself, let's gently walk through 8 shifts, 8 ways of relating to your mind differently that can slowly loosen the grip of overthinking. Not by force, but by understanding. Not by fighting your thoughts, but by seeing them more clearly. The first shift is learning to notice your thoughts without immediately believing them. For many people, overthinking isn't a conscious choice. It's a habit that runs quietly in the background, a constant inner voice analyzing, predicting, judging, always trying to stay one step ahead, even when there's nowhere to go. And because it's always been there, it starts to feel like truth, like something you have to listen to. But awareness changes everything. The moment you pause and realize, wait, I'm spiraling right now, something subtle happens. You interrupt the pattern, even if just for a second. You create a small space between you and your thoughts. And in that space, you're no longer trapped inside them. You're no longer completely defined by them. Even something as simple as focusing on your breath or feeling the weight of your body in a chair can bring you back into the present moment, back into something real, something stable. Not to stop thinking entirely, but to stop being carried away by it. The second shift is understanding the difference between thinking that helps and thinking that drains you. Not all thinking is harmful. Sometimes reflecting on a situation leads to clarity. It helps you learn, adjust, grow. It gives you direction. But overthinking often disguises itself as problem solving, when in reality, it's just fear looping in different forms, repeating the same questions without ever moving forward. What if this goes wrong? Why did I do that? What will they think? These questions don't lead to action. They lead to paralysis. They keep you busy, but not productive. A small but powerful shift is changing the kind of questions you ask. Instead of, why is this happening to me? You gently move toward, what can I do next? Or even, what is enough for now? It doesn't erase uncertainty, but it brings you back into movement, back into something you can actually do. And movement is what overthinking quietly takes away. The third shift is giving your mind a place and a time to reflect. Because the truth is, trying to suppress your thoughts completely rarely works. The more you push them away, the louder they return, and sometimes even stronger than before. But when your mind has no boundaries, reflection turns into rumination. It spills into every moment, even the ones meant for rest. So instead of letting your thoughts take over your entire day, you can begin to contain them. You allow yourself a specific moment to sit with your thoughts, to reflect, to process, to actually listen, instead of react. And outside of that time, you gently remind yourself, this isn't the moment for that. Not with frustration, but with quiet redirection. It's not about avoidance. It's about creating structure where chaos used to be, about teaching your mind that it doesn't have to think all the time to be safe. The fourth shift is learning how to step out of your head and back into your life. Overthinking pulls you inward into a world made of possibilities, fears, and imagined outcomes. A world that feels real, but doesn't actually move. But life doesn't happen there. Life happens in movement, in action, in experience, in moments you can touch, feel, and participate in. And sometimes, the most effective way to interrupt overthinking is not to solve it, but to step away from it. You engage in something physical, something creative, something that requires your presence, not as a distraction, but as a reminder. There is a world outside your thoughts, and you are still part of it, even when your mind tries to pull you away. The fifth shift is learning to zoom out. Overthinking has a way of magnifying small moments until they feel overwhelming, until they feel permanent. A single mistake becomes a reflection of your entire identity. A minor decision feels like it will determine your entire future. Everything feels heavier, more final, more important than it really is. But when you step back and ask, will this matter in a week, a month, a year? Something softens. Not because the moment is meaningless, but because it is no longer everything. It becomes just one part of a much larger picture. Perspective doesn't erase your feelings, but it places them in a wider frame. And often, that wider frame brings relief because you realize this moment isn't the whole story. The sixth shift is practicing presence, not as a concept, but as a way of living. When your mind is constantly in the future or the past, the present moment starts to feel distant, like something you pass through, without really experiencing. You move through your day, but you're not really there. You're somewhere else, thinking about something else. Mindfulness isn't about forcing your mind to be quiet. It's about returning, again and again, to what is happening right now. The feeling of your footsteps, the sound of your surroundings, the rhythm of your breath. At first, it feels small, almost insignificant, like it won't change anything. But over time, it becomes an anchor, something you can come back to when your mind starts to drift. And slowly, your mind learns that it doesn't always have to run, that it's okay to rest, even for a moment. The seventh shift is letting go of the need to be perfect, because perfectionism and overthinking are often deeply connected. They feed into each other, quietly reinforcing the same fear. When you feel like everything has to be just right, every decision becomes heavier. Every action becomes something you have to overanalyze. You analyze every detail. You anticipate every possible mistake. You try to eliminate every risk. And in the process, you stop moving altogether. But there's a quiet truth many people resist. Progress comes from imperfect action, not from flawless thinking. When you allow yourself to be human, to make mistakes, to not have everything figured out, you create space for movement again, space for learning through experience. And sometimes, good enough is not settling. It's what finally sets you free. The eighth shift is learning to see yourself with compassion instead of constant evaluation. Many overthinkers are deeply self-aware. They notice everything, their actions, their words, their impact. They care deeply about doing things right. But that awareness often turns into self-criticism, into a constant need to review, correct, and improve. You replay moments not to understand, but to judge, to find what you should have done differently. And over time, your mind becomes a place that feels unsafe to rest in, a place where you're always being evaluated. Compassion changes that. It doesn't mean ignoring your mistakes, it means holding them with understanding, with the recognition that you are still learning, recognizing that you were doing the best you could with what you knew at the time, even if it wasn't perfect, and that you're still allowed to grow without punishing yourself along the way. Because here's something important to remember. Overthinking is not a flaw. It's often a sign of a mind that is trying to protect you, to prepare you, to make sense of a complex world, to avoid pain before it happens. There is intelligence in that. There is sensitivity in that. But when that same mind never learns when to stop, it turns against you. It becomes a place of tension instead of safety. And that's the quiet trap. The more you rely on thinking to feel safe, the less safe you actually feel. Because there is always something else to analyze, something else to predict, something else to worry about. And the loop continues, not because you're broken, but because the pattern was never interrupted. So the shift is not about thinking less, it's about relating to your thoughts differently, seeing them without immediately following them, questioning them without letting them define you, and gently returning to the life that exists beyond them. Because clarity doesn't always come from thinking more. Sometimes it comes from stepping outside the noise long enough to hear something quieter, something steadier, something real. And maybe the most honest truth is this: your mind will always try to wander. It will always try to pull you into stories, fears, possibilities. But you don't have to go with it every time. And the moment you realize that is the moment overthinking starts to lose its power.